is the James Madison Louisville game on a Friday night at Louisville. The Cardinals are a 14-point favorite, and we get the opportunity to find out a little bit about that game and the Louisville Cardinals season by bringing in my special guest, talking Louisville football. You can find him at cardinalauthority.com. He publishes that website. Jody Demling. Jody, thanks a lot for doing this.
Yeah, no problem. It's great. It's a whole weekend of football, so I'm excited. Football season, it can't get any better, right?
No, this is it. And still a few more days away before the NFL season kicks off. But hey, we got college football to talk about. We have games that we could recap and new film that we could look over. So that's exciting. Talk about Louisville's opening game win against Eastern Kentucky. I know it's, of course, one of those academic, lower, series teams, and the score was indicative of that. But statistically speaking, it did look like there were some little issues here. I mean, the 3 interceptions by the quarterbacks. What did you think about the overall performance week 1 for Louisville?
I mean, honestly, it was the stats are one of those games where if you don't know anything about it, it kind of lies a little bit, because it was 41-0 like that. And the starters only played. Isaac Brown ran the ball 6 times for 126 yards. Miller Moss played exactly 1 half. Nobody played more than 1 half for Louisville on either side of the ball. They played 92 guys, I think, overall on the afternoon and into the evening. And honestly, Miller Moss, they drive down the first possession, touchdown, 3 and out on defense. Colin Lacey, 93-yard kick punt return for a touchdown. Get the ball back, 3 and out, drive down and score again. They scored on their first 5 possessions. They had the punt return. And then at the end of the half, Coach Brom, coaches always want to work on stuff. They always want to know how it's going to happen. So he calls timeout, as it was the only drive. I think in the first half, Eastern Kentucky had 52 yards or 42 yards. And most of it came on the last drive. And so he calls timeout on 3rd and long, fourth and long, and to force them to punt late in the game. And then Louisville, Miller Moss, what's he do? He throws the worst pass of the night, a little too high, and it was a pick 6. So Louisville gets the ball back. Gets the ball back. It was a bad pass. It was a bad pass. Miller Moss went 17-25. It was a very bad pass. So Louisville gets the ball back, and then they hit 2 pretty good plays driving down the field. This is all within the last minute of the half. They drive down the field, and he throws a ball to Antonio Meeks that's just the perfect ball down to about the 16, 17-yard line. And Antonio Meeks lays out. He catches it, and as he's coming to the ground, the ball kind of comes out and it comes in the air. It hits the defender. It hits the receiver in the foot and then kicks straight up in the air, and some other defender picks it off for the interception. So it was a little misleading. They dominated this game like you would like to see them. Yeah. But the turnovers, that's 12 penalties and 3 turnovers in the opening game. Now, that's not going to be good. 5 of the 12 penalties were on special teams. Now, they had over 200 yards of return yards in special teams, even with 5 penalties, 4 of them being holding. One was a personal foul where there was a little, mix up on the sideline going on. So things like that. So I'm really, when I look back and I watched it again, I was actually even more impressed when I watched it again of the first half. And I didn't watch the second half when a lot of the penalties and a lot of things happened in the second half with all the second string and third string. And, there were guys that, quite honestly, there were 2 guys that most people didn't even know were on the roster. They were late additions, one a walk-on kicker or a punter, and one a defensive lineman who was a late addition. They weren't even on the roster until here recently. So everybody got to play, and that's the one thing that I think Jeff Brom has really done in his 3 years here, and he did it at Purdue, is if you get into a game like this, you're going to play. 2 years ago, against Murray State, they played 9 quarterbacks in one game. Yeah, wow. 9 quarterbacks. I
didn't know you had 9 quarterbacks.
He had 9 that first year. Everybody wants to be a quarterback.
Can't get 9 anymore.
Yeah. No, they were most of them were walk-ons. But again, in this one, they played 5 quarterbacks. You know what I mean? So they played the top 3 guys, and then a couple guys got snaps at the very end. So he's really big about rewarding his guys with the opportunity. If they get the opportunity, you're going to go in. You're going to go in the game, and everybody did. But I was really impressed with Miller Moss and how he did it, and how he improved from the beginning of when he got here until now, through spring ball. You could tell in spring game it was a little kind of iffy. He had never, it was funny. He's like, look, I've never been in a huddle. He's like, I've always done things at the line. I've never really had to call out a play. And you don't think about little things like that are different. Yeah. But Jeff Brom is like, look, this is, if you're going to play at the next level, you're going to have to do this. So this is what you're going to do, kind of thing.
That's great.
And Miller said he has learned a lot from them, and you can tell he's gotten better. And I'll say this. I think their defense is a little bit better than I anticipated.
Okay. That was a big question when I was looking over the team myself going into the season. It was like, well, it looks like they've got some definitely weapons on offense with Moss and Brom, and they're going to be fine there. But I was looking at the defense and wondering if that was going to be maybe their downfall. But so far, so good.
Yeah, and I think it's up front more than anything. Rene Conga is a massive dude in the middle of the line. He was a transfer from Rutgers last year, and he's the guy in the middle up front, and he's done a really good job. He's about a little over 300 pounds now, and last year didn't have to do a whole lot because they had guys. They had some older guys that were in the middle, and he played some, but not a lot. But then you look right next to him and Jordan Gerard. Those two guys, Jordan Gerard, as basically, I call him he's not in their system, he's not a nose tackle, but he is what you would think of a traditional kind of nose tackle guy. He's more of that D. They both of those guys play and they move around and they do all kinds of things, but he led them in tackles actually, and Conga got the first couple tackles. And then Clev Lubin is the guy who's a transfer from Coastal Carolina. And he made the statement in the preseason, I'm going to prove to everybody that, like, I did it at one level and I'm going to do it the next level. And he had 2 sacks and a couple of tackles for loss. He had 9.5 sacks for Coastal last year. And he said that, like, hey, I think I'm one of the best. I believe I'm one of the best rush guys in the country. And he's out there to try to prove it. And then Wesley Bailey on the other side is the replacement for Ashton Gelati, and he's a transfer from Rutgers. He and Conga, it's kind of funny, he and Conga are both Canadians, and they grew up together. They grew up together in Canada as buddies, and both ended up at Rutgers. They went their own way. One came to, I think, to Florida, and the other one was up somewhere in the north and played at prep schools. They both got to Rutgers, and then now they're both here at Louisville. And I tell you what, Bailey is, Ashton Gelati was really good for Louisville, as people are seeing now in the NFL, just how good he is. But Bailey has been, he's been a bright spot. And those guys up front, they have depth with Denzel Lowry and Jerry Lawson. And then you look at Adonijah Green. He's a guy who we've been waiting for it. They call him Sticks because he was 205 pounds when he got here at Louisville. He's now about, I'd say, probably 255, maybe pushing 260 now. And he had a big game the other day. So up front, they're a lot better than what I thought they would be. And then the linebackers are just solid. Antonio Watts, TJ Quinn, Stanquan Clark. You throw in Caleb Perry, a transfer from Tennessee, and TJ Capers, who is the 5th highest rated recruit in Louisville football history. And we've just been waiting for him to kind of take that next step forward. And those 5 guys at the linebacker spot have really are kind of the key to this defense, I think.
So that's Capers?
That's Capers, yeah.
Okay.
He's a Miami kid who skipped he was one of the top 50 guys in the 2025 recruiting class, but decided to skip his senior year of high school, enroll early at Louisville. He had a knee injury, knew he wasn't going to do anything that year. He enrolled early at Louisville and has just always kind of been behind a little bit. Had he not reclassified and he'd been in that 2025 class, like I said, he was a top 50 guy in that class. Only Peanut Whitehead and James Quick are the only 2 guys. I'm sorry, Peanut Whitehead and Michael Bush, the former Louisville running back. They're the only 2 recruits since 2000 that were rated higher than Capers would have been in that class. So
Okay.
that tells you what he was thought of when he was in high school before he got hurt. Now, here we are, almost 3 years later, 2.5 years later, and he's really the first year did not play at all. Last year showed some signs, but was still kind of immature, and now he's kind of taken that step forward. So their linebacking room is really good.
Who would he be? Because one of the questions I like to ask is if there was a player or two that you would signal as maybe breakout caliber players.
Yeah.
Would Capers be that type of guy as early as this year? And if so, any other players that you think could break out as far as the veteran holdovers?
I think Capers is probably that guy for them as far as a younger guy who hasn't had a ton of reps. I think he's the guy that's going to show. TJ Quinn has led him in tackles for 2 years in a row, so he's playing behind him and Stanquan Clark, who might be, because of his size and his athleticism, might be the best kind of NFL prospect, I guess, on the defense. But Capers is working himself in there and has done a really nice job. And I tell you, the other guy is funny because in week 2 last year, I also do. I'm the sideline guy on the radio network at Louisville, and week 2 last year we played Jacksonville State, and they were a good team. Louisville had a really good game plan, had a good game that week, and won pretty easy. But during that game on the radio, we were just talking. It was kind of a boring game at the end of a blowout, and we were talking. This guy made a couple plays, and one of our guys is like, "Hey, never know, he might be with us next year." Well, lo and behold, Jabari Mack is with Louisville this year. He made a couple big plays in that game for Jacksonville State, and now he is with Louisville as a corner. And he's been listed as that second team guy for a while, but he started the other day over Rodney Johnson at the one corner spot. And I tell you what, he was really, really good. And I think he's a guy, again, he's an older guy, but he's never done it at this level. And I think he's a breakout guy. He is a breakout guy from Jacksonville, Florida, that really is an older guy, but nobody really knows a lot about him. And he's going to be solid. And he was the other day. And I look for him to be kind of the big guy in the secondary as far as the corner spot goes.
What is there a particular position on defense that concerns you the most, or is
I do still think it's the secondary. I think he's made a jump. Rodney Johnson, a transfer from Southern, has been good. He's another one back there. Tayon Holloway, who was in some trouble last year, was dismissed from the team, and then the charges of the trouble got dropped, so he's back on the team. He started opposite of Mack the other day. And then you got Justin Agu and Ramon Mosby, different guys like that. I think the secondary is still what I worry about a little bit, only because of depth. They just don't have a ton of quality bodies who've done it before. They basically have 3 safeties and 5 corners right now. And if something were to happen, and knock on wood it doesn't, they're going to have to go with one of these young guys that are unproven and haven't done it before. And again, that's just the spot that really worries me.
Is there and again, this is, I guess we haven't updated this, so it's Holloway.
Holloway, yeah, Tayon Holloway.
Tayon Holloway,
Tayon Holloway is started at the one corner, and Justin Agu was backing him up. And again, it's like I said, it's just a matter of staying healthy in that group, in that position group, staying healthy, because they can make plays. I mean, D'Angelo Hutchinson, JoJo Evans, and Corey Gordon, give them 3 really good safety opportunities. You know what I mean? Like guys that have played a lot of ball, the guys that can make plays. It's just a matter of staying healthy.
And any freshmen on defense that will have a chance to contribute this year?
Honestly, you know what? Coach Braum, the first 2 years he's been here, only 3 guys have burned their red shirt. Stanquan Clark the 1 year, the linebacker, and then last year Isaac Brown and Duke Watson. Those are 3 pretty good guys. They're 3 of the best guys on this team right now. I have a hard time seeing anyone in the freshman class burning their red shirt. They really, really like Cameron White, the linebacker, but they're deep at linebacker, so they don't have to put him in there.
Okay.
They love Eric Hazard. He's a defensive end, but he's behind Bailey and a couple other guys there, so I don't know that you'll see him. Antonio Harris is the one guy. Antonio Harris was kind of an all-do-it-all athlete at Male High School here in town. He is a legacy guy. His dad, Nate Harris, was a really good linebacker for Louisville back in the day and played in the NFL. Antonio Harris was a quarterback, a receiver, a running back, a punt return guy, kick return guy, a linebacker, a defensive back. Wherever you want to put him in high school, he did that. He's kind of one of those guys. I think he's found his spot in the secondary here. He didn't play a ton the other day because, like I said, none of the freshmen really played a ton. But I think he's one of the one to watch. If there were an injury, he's the first one that I think is going to get a crack.
Okay. And then on offense, you mentioned Brown and Watson. Of course, Brown is he had to be considered one of the most underrated freshmen in the country last year because of just where he is. And but wow, that's you've seen a lot of good running backs. How does he compare?
He's really good, and I'll tell you this. He's so good he's so fast. He's so elusive. He's so good, but it's kind of helping him. And he would be the first to tell you, it's kind of helping him that he's got a guy like Duke Watson right behind him, who led the nation in yards per carry last year as a true freshman. He didn't get on campus. Duke Watson didn't arrive on campus last year until August 1st.
Wow.
So he's not a guy that even enrolled. Isaac was here since January. Duke arrived in August, and he did all that last year. So I think those guys push each other. And then there's a third one, Kewan Brown, who is a kid who he's a little bit, I wouldn't say he's not really bigger than those guys. He's just a little more physical, maybe. Okay. He's not the fast. Those two guys are shifty and fast. He's a little more physical, and it's really a three-headed kind of monster. You know what I mean? And it's kind of crazy, but I think they've helped each other get better because they know if they don't do it, they're coming out. And it doesn't matter if it's Isaac or Duke or Kewan. If they don't do it, they're coming out. And it'll be interesting. 6 carries for 126 yards and 2 touchdowns for Isaac the other day is a pretty good start to the season. And again, I think he only played, I believe it was 15 snaps. I think Kewan had 21 snaps, and he was the running back with the most snaps. Kewan Brown was. Duke Watson only ran the ball twice, and only had 2 yards, so that's going to bring his per yard carry for his career down. And it was up there in the national leader, but he caught a ridiculous ball in the end zone. I'm not sure how he caught it. A 30-yard touchdown pass from Miller Moss. It was a perfect pass, but he had a defender on him, and Duke made a catch. That's what makes those two, meaning Duke and Isaac, so good, is they're so good at catching the ball out of the backfield. I think last year Isaac Brown was the 4th leading receiver on the team, and Duke Watson was like the 6th leading receiver on the team. They had some pretty good receivers, on that team last year. So those guys are not only good out of the backfield, but they're good catching the ball out of the backfield as well. I love those three, and I think you're just going to see them continue to feed. It'll be interesting how they determine who gets this and that for every night. It's like, it'd be great if they could all score a touchdown in every game like they did the other day. It's not going to be like that. But, in the Clemson game last year, Isaac had a huge game. Duke was okay, didn't play as much. If I remember right, he was a little nicked up. But Kewan Brown, it was a goal line situation and in still a real key part of the game, and they put Kewan Brown in there, and they're fine with putting these guys in there, and he scored a touchdown. You know what I mean? So these guys are all three really, really talented backs, and this day and age, I'm shocked that they're still all three together. I mean, that's what see. You know what I mean? So far, exactly. For 2 years, you're going to have all three of these guys, and that's pretty amazing.
And speaking of Moss, we know that he's got the talent, USC, all that. What is it about what you've seen so far, and maybe even heard ever since he's transferred over, that he needs to do to become a better quarterback?
Well, the first time we ever saw him, he was throwing 6 touchdowns against Louisville in the Holiday Bowl. So it was it wasn't fun back there to watch, but now looking back, it's like, oh yeah, that's our guy now,
Yeah.
But I think the thing of it is, again, it was just, there's some differences in the nuances, some, calling plays out of a huddle. The terminology that Coach Brom has, it's a little, it's not really dink and dunk kind of thing, I don't think, but they like intermediate things. They like the short routes and intermediate routes, and then take a shot down the field. And, Miller said that just little things like that he has to get used to, that he has to adjust to. And, he's probably going to run it a little more than Tyler Shuck did. I remember last year, people were like, oh, Tyler Shuck's never going to run the ball. And then in a Notre Dame game, when you didn't think he was going to run the ball, they were backed up in their own end zone, and Tyler Shuck goes for, I think it was 52 yards, and it would have been the biggest play of the game had, when he came down, the ball not popped out and he fumbled. You know what I mean?
Course.
So Louisville's got the ball in plus territory going in to go up 14-0 in the game, early in that game, and instead it's Notre Dame ball, and then they score a couple plays later, and it kind of changed things. So Tyler didn't run it a lot, but there were times when he did. Miller's not going to run it a lot, but I think there's going to be a couple more times that he does. He is a pretty athletic guy. And again, you don't see him doing it a whole lot in that, but I think he's going to do it more this year than maybe what we've seen. He scored a rushing touchdown the other day. The play kind of broke down, and he just kind of went out there, and it's like, hey, you know what? 8 yards. I'm going to go in. I'm in for a touchdown. And again, that's just his athleticism, but he's been professional in everything he's done. And I'll say this, I love Tyler. Jack Plummer was great at Louisville 2 years ago. When they brought him in, Jack Plummer did all the right things and played a really fine season. There were some ups and some downs, but I mean, they were right there in the ACC championship game, and we're in that game. Tyler Shuck, when he got here, was a little more professional, and I just mean, like, he just seemed older. He seemed, and he was that veteran guy. He had been through a lot. He had been through a ton of injuries and a ton of different teammates and a ton of different coordinators and coaches and all that. And you could tell that last year with him. With Miller, I won't say he's more polished, but I think he's got that professionalism with that swagger, and it's that Southern California, it's that California swagger that he kind of has. They call him, they just say California cool is what some of his teammates call him. And he does have that, and you can kind of tell out there on the field. And I'm excited to see them progress and put some more things in the playbook and do some things. The other thing I'll tell you, what he also told us at the ACC Media Day, what's different is that Coach Brom has so many trick plays in his playbook.
Oh, okay.
So many different things, and Miller was like, it's different, but it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot more fun. Creative.
And really, in the first 2 years of the Brom era here at Louisville, we've seen a few, but not many. But boy, when he was at Western Kentucky, for real, and then those couple of those years at Purdue, it was like left and right, and the throwing to the tackle and fake reverses, this and that. I mean, there were so many different things, and I think you'll see more this year with Miller.
Does you mentioned the different ways that Shuck teaches his quarterbacks. Does Moss clap to the snap?
You know what? Yeah, I can't remember now.
I know it's such a familiar thing now.
Yeah, I if you wouldn't have asked me that, I could have told you, but now I can't even picture.
Yeah, I bring that up because that is something I was reading about John Gruden, and I'm glad somebody finally said it. But John Gruden talked about how he hates it, and it's because it's part of how coaches have taken way too much of the responsibility for the coach for the quarterbacks, and the quarterbacks are coming into the NFL unprepared, just like you said.
I don't think he does. I really don't think he does. I can't remember. I can't recall from the other day, but I don't think they do.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that that prepares you more is not clapping. Is getting under center even more, or just getting the cadences the way and being more control of the offense. And
I think when you really look at this coaching staff, I mean, Jeff Brom played the position in the NFL. The offensive coordinator and the quarterback coach, Brian Brom, played the position in the NFL. But then you add another mix this year for all those guys on offense, and the fact that Deion Branch played and was a Super Bowl MVP and played at the highest level for so many years in the NFL. And now he's part of this staff as a wide receiver coach. And I think those three kind of bring a lot of NFL nuances to this program.
Yep. Teaching the kids, and it's also great for recruiting. And speaking of the quarterback position, and do they have someone on the roster right now, like a young quarterback, that if when Moss leaves, that boom, hey, this guy might be our guy next year?
They love their portal quarterbacks.
Okay.
I mean, it's Deuce Adams. So Miller's the guy. Brady Allen came in second. Brady Allen last week in the game, he was the second guy in. Brady Allen's a guy they really like. He's been with them since at Purdue. He actually went into the portal this year and then decided to come back. And when Pierce Clarkson left Louisville, Brady Allen decided he was going to come back to Louisville this year. So this is now his fourth year in the system. He actually made a couple really good plays the other day. But then, they've talked a lot about his consistency. He was 6 for 9 with a touchdown, 69 yards the other day. But then he threw one pretty bad pass that was picked off, that was intercepted. So it was consistency. Deuce Adams is the younger of the guys. He's a redshirt freshman. He was 2 of 3 for 21 yards the other day, and he had a run for 10 yards. He's more of the dual threat kind of guy.
Okay.
And then Mason Mims is the true freshman. He did not play the other day, but he's more of the bigger drop back passing kind of thing. So it'll be interesting. They've got one. Briggs Cherry is a kid who's he was in the Elite 11 this year, who's committed to them, and a bunch of schools are trying to get him to flip and not come to Louisville in this current recruiting class.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see kind of how they handle it. This is the one off season where I don't think they've had the quarterbacks in the room that they felt like, okay, should we take a transfer or should we not before? But now I think after this year is when they're going to have to answer that question for the first time. It'll be interesting.
A couple more questions, and then we'll close out with the James Madison game, and that is, how's the offensive line looking?
Good. A lot of guys. And I think they struggled a little early on in fall camp with the right mix. They think they found it right now. They are still missing a couple guys right now that they should get back here soon. But Pete Niagara is the center. He is the guy, and the depth chart right there is exactly like they played the other day.
Okay.
Miller and Musa on one side, and Robinson and Pounders on the other side. Jordan Church, who's the backup left guard, came in the second or third series. He's kind of the sixth guy. And I think he's a guy that when they bring him in, Pounders had been injured a little bit in fall camp. So he's not 100%. So when they bring Church in, they move Robinson over to the left tackle spot. And then they put Church in there. And so they've got those six guys that they can rotate in and out there. Victor Cutler and Trevante Sylvester have both been out for Cutler just a couple of days, just since last week, I think, and it's a minor thing. He should be back soon. Sylvester's been out for a few weeks, and he should be back as well soon. But those were the next two guys kind of in the mix with Nair Jackson. Now, they have a true freshman, and let's see. He was a late addition.
Okay.
Cameron Gorin is his name. He was committed to Purdue, and I think actually signed maybe with Purdue before, I think maybe in December. No, he was committed to Purdue to the old staff, and then ended up not going to Purdue last year. And so at the very last minute decided to come to Louisville, and the guys Louisville had been recruiting him since the beginning. His dad, Brandon Gorin, played I think 8 years in the NFL, 5 different teams, and was on a couple Super Bowl rosters. And this kid has got a lot of potential, and they think he's like a superstar kind of in the making. And
tackle.
Yes, a tackle.
Okay.
And he is a guy that he's from up near Indianapolis. I'm looking for his height. 6'5", 275 right now. Fishers, Indiana, as a true freshman. And played quite a few snaps the other day at the left tackle spot. So he's a guy that they feel like he's the backup left tackle. And if any freshman on the offense burns the red shirt, it'll be him. And I think he's probably in that rotation to where he might burn his red shirt. He might be the guy that does it. But they're really high on him, and he's a really good player.
And then at receiver, we know that Lacey, you mentioned him, and then there's Bell.
Right.
Are there any other receivers that we need to be keeping an eye on that could have a big contribution?
I think Trayshawn Hurry, transfer from San Jose State. He wasn't here in the spring. It was, I think, their second leading receiver last year at San Jose State. And he is just started at Weber State, then went to JUCO, then went to San Jose State. He's a guy who's got big time potential. He only had one catch the other day. They didn't play those guys a ton of snaps. And then Antonio Meeks is a guy who came to Louisville last year from Tuskegee. And they liked him early on. Then is little consistency issues last year, so he didn't have a whole lot. Those 3 catches for 42 yards and that touchdown from last year were all in the bowl game. When everybody opted out, all those guys opted out. Well, he was there, and he made some big catches. And the other day, 2 catches for 34 yards, and he's got an opportunity to be a really good one as well. But it's all going to go through Chris Bell and Colin Lacey. I mean, it really is. I mean, some NFL guys that have been in that I've talked to when we've been at practice, and that, I mean, they're looking at him at the high level as far as the draft is concerned, because Chris Bell, he's just such a physical kind of guy. He's listed at 6'2", 220. I'd say he's probably even maybe 225-ish now. But he's faster than he has been, physical, just kind of that. I use the word nasty in a good way. He's just got that about him. And I will not be shocked if he ends up working himself into a day one kind of thing in the draft. And then Colin Lacey, 93-yard punt return the other day. If you look at his year 2 years ago, you look at that year 2 years ago at South Alabama, 91 catches for 1,300 yards. He is fast. He's shifty. He's really, really talented. Broke his collarbone in fall camp last year. Came back in the Notre Dame game, played really well in the Notre Dame game, and kind of just was kind of ho-hum, and then opted out after 4 games. He was like, look, I'm going to redshirt. I'm going to come back somewhere for a year. We thought he was probably going in the portal. He ends up coming back to Louisville, and he's going to be a guy that's going to be really, really good.
Okay. Now, by the way, do you have a breakout player on offense?
I'm going to go with Trayshawn Hurry, just because I think, he is a guy that San Jose State played well, but I think he's a guy he's a guy that's going to. I mean, I could have said Duke Watson, but he led the nation in yards per carry last year. But so I don't think he's probably going to be Duke and Isaac are going to be kind of pushing each other for who's going to rush for the most, I think. But I think Trayshawn is kind of the guy that nobody really knows who's going to do it.
Okay, and then here's the matchup. It's James Madison. Again, it's a 14-point spread. But as I was mentioning before, there were I had like a 2 or 3 of my top group of 5 teams this year. James Madison was one of them. And I really feel James Madison has a legitimate chance to be the group of 5 representative. But in order to do that, they are going to, first of all, I should say, secondly, just to jump ahead, they are going to have to beat Liberty. They got to get that out of the way. Right. But if they can at least compete with Louisville, they don't have to win. Winning would be a cherry on top, of course, and they run the table to win. But I expect that. I actually expect this is going to be a really good football game.
Yeah, I do too, and I think Jeff Brom expects that. I think they know that this is a game that was added late. It's kind of funny, to be honest with you, how this game was added. This game was added in October of 2023 when Indiana backed out of the Louisville series. So Louisville could be playing Indiana in Bloomington this week, which would have been a really good matchup.
Yeah.
And instead, you get James Madison on a Friday night, which is a really good matchup. You know what I mean? So you turn one matchup for another one. I think this is a really good game. The one thing that Ron English's defenses had trouble with last year, or the past 2 years, is mobile quarterbacks. And I think that's what I think that's what they face this week. And I think it's going to be a challenge for them. Now, I do think they're a little bit better with the scheme. We don't know yet. Are the parts in the defense? I think they are. But are the parts in the defense as good or better than they were last year? We'll find that out over the course of the next couple of weeks. I think the scheme is better. Coach Braum has been spending more time with the defense, giving his input down there with the defense. And
same coordinator.
And he is defensive. Ron English has been the defensive coordinator for the last 3 years. He was with him at Purdue. I think the last 3 games last year, Jeff Braum said, we want to be more aggressive. We want to do some different things. And I do think that it really, they were, and they won those games. And so I think they will be aggressive. Here's what I think is the difference in this game to me, to be honest with you. The difference in this game is a little bit of the top end speed. And I mean that in the return game and with the running backs and the receivers at Louisville. I think when you say Colin Lacey, Chris Bell, Isaac Brown, Duke Watson, those guys, there's probably Louisville has more of those guys. Not that James Madison doesn't have it. I think that's the difference, and I think
those
that's
are
why
top guys. Yeah,
I think that's why Louisville wins the game. But I don't think it's going to be 70-50 like it was. Was that week 2 or 3 last year? James Madison against North Carolina. It's not going to be 70-50. But I do think that it's going to probably be a pretty high scoring game, and I think Louisville does pull it out in the end. But it's going to be a good game. It's going to be a fun game. And look, this Louisville program, when Tom Jurich was the athletic director, back when Bobby Petrino was here the first time, and John L. Smith was here, and different things, this program was built on Thursday and Friday night games. Back in Conference USA, when they used to play, they had to play on Friday night because you had to, you wanted to get on TV somehow, some way. This program was built on those Friday night games, and this fan base gets jacked up still for those Friday night games. So I expect this is going to be a massive this week. I expect this game is going to be just ridiculously intense because of the Friday night.
Yeah, they've got an interesting quarterback situation. I know Barnett is the real one. I think that's the dangerous one, even though, of course, Sluka had that great start of the season last year with UNLV, and then we all know what happened. And so now he's back with the coaches that he was with a few years ago. And Petaway is that North Carolina running back transfer who looks really good. So they got some nice players. But I agree with you because, as you can see here, there's a whole bunch of players in orange. And that means that these are all transfers, especially on defense, and they are relying on a lot of transfers, a lot of FCS transfers. Now, these are guys that are, good FCS players that are moving on to James Madison, but we're talking about Louisville here in the ACC. And that's the other thing too, is I mean, how about a heck of a starting week for the ACC? Clemson lost, but that's okay because they won the conference last year. But to have these 2 big wins by Florida State and Miami really is important for the conference. It
really is. And honestly, this is a big game for the conference. This Louisville game is a big game for the conference just because you don't want it. There's a lot of positive momentum right now. And I think Louisville's one of those teams. While Louisville's not picked to win the league, I look at Louisville as one of those teams in that second tier that you just don't know. Are they going to finish second or third? Are they going to finish 4th, 5th, 6th? Or are they going to finish a little bit out? And I think this week probably solidifies, to me at least, of the first games. Look, they got a bye week after this, okay? And then they've got Bowling Green. And then they've got, Pittsburgh and Virginia before another bye week. So they've got a manageable schedule after this, before they go into Miami after bye week, when Miami's coming off of Florida and Florida State in back-to-back week. So Louisville's got a manageable schedule, and you've got a game where you got a little bit of an advantage there going into it later in October. So if you can get this one for Louisville, it really kind of sets you up and I think puts you for sure in that second tier of those teams in the league.
Agreed. And this is what we really will find out. Big jump up, of course, from Eastern Kentucky to James Madison, but we'll have a much better idea of Louisville's defense has improved, like you said. And that is going to be, I think, the big indicator on whether or not they can compete with the top teams in the ACC.
Yep.
Still a long way to go. And if they do run that table, like you were talking about, Jody, then anticipating this could be a really fun year for Louisville. And I look forward to the opportunity of maybe getting up to talk to you again, especially later on down the road with all those big games coming up. So I really thank you for taking the time to talk to us today.
No problem. And they're all on Friday night too. So I mean,
okay.
Louisville, this one's on Friday night. Miami's on Friday night. Clemson's on Friday night. It's like what it's the Friday night show for Louisville.
They're getting back to the Friday nights, getting back. Exactly. I like it. Yeah, especially
I appreciate you having
how many
me.
are at home?
They play Clemson. They play Clemson. They have 8 home games this year.
Okay.
So 8 home games. The first 3 are at home, then 3 of the last 4 are at home. But yeah, the Miami game's on the road, but the Clemson game is at home in the first weekend in November. So
well, those would be some really fun games to cover then. So we'll have links in the description. You can check out Jody's work as well as his social media. So again, Jody, thank you very much. Have a really good start to the season, and hopefully we'll talk to you down the road.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it, Jody. Thank you.